Welcome to Crossroad Connection. We're speaking out for those left unheard. My name is David Schuringa, and I'm the host of your program. I'm the president of Crossroad Bible Institute. If you've been watching our program or reading our literature, you know that the whole matter of immigration is of great importance to us, and undocumented immigrants and how they are treated and how the church responds to that. And especially in the news now, we're talking about thousands of migrant children who are crossing the borders seeking refuge in our country. And so today I have with me in the studio, his name is Chris Van Ingen.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris, first of all, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We're delighted to have you here. Chris works with the Office of Social Justice.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of good friends there. We work closely with them. But Chris is a specialist in this whole immigration issue, correct?
Yes.
And it's an issue that's close to your heart. You've been doing this for how long?
Specifically, as my job, I've been doing this with the Office of Social Justice for 4 years. And I do it not just as my job, but as a Christian, too. So my expertise isn't on the legal side of things or the political side of things. I approach it as a pastor. I'm an ordained minister in the Reformed Church of America.
That's right. You graduated from Western.
Yep. I'm a minister in the Reformed Church of America, and at the church where I attend, I don't have any staff duties, and so I was nominated as a deacon like 6 months after I started this position. So now I'm a deacon there too, and becoming a deacon, I mean, I've been working in this area, but once I became a deacon, I think that even more so than being a pastor is when the immigration thing just really sunk into my heart. I was like, my ordination as a deacon in my church and installation as a deacon in my church, when they laid their hands on me there in that church service, I felt like they were sending me to this position that I have. Like that was the charge they were giving me, not just to take collection at my church, but I felt like it was a charge from the Holy Spirit for me to do this work, not just at my church, but at the job where I was already doing it. So when I talk about doing it with my deacon hat on, that's where I really get passionate. It's not just a job. It's like I'm doing this for the people at my church.
Yeah. Well, that's really neat because sometimes deacons are seen as sort of the lower tier office bearers, and then you can become an elder, and then someday you can arrive at being a pastor.
Yeah,
but you were a
flipped
pastor.
Upside down for me in real life.
Yeah, in real life it's upside down. And if you think about it too, where does the action happen? And it actually is and should be in the diaconate. And so you must be talking about your experience with helping the poor as a deacon, and then somehow maybe undocumented immigrants came into the picture.
Yeah, when they laid their hands on us and did the charge to deacons, they said one of the words was to be prophetic critics of waste and injustice, and that just struck me. And in the congregation where I am, there are members who contribute so much to the life of our congregation. They're such an important piece of our congregation, but their legal status is not there. They don't have legal status.
Oh, you're in that conundrum. Oh,
yeah, and so for some of those, there is a person who is 60 years old. He's been here since his childhood days, and he's never had legal status. He's never been able to get it.
A member of your church.
He's been there for that long, so he can obviously, as having been there that long, contribute a lot more than I can. And if there's benevolent needs there, which maybe arise sometimes, those are taken care of. But for this member of our congregation, what the deacons could really do for him is to help him, is to advocate for laws that would allow him to get legal status. That would mean so much more than any medical services or other stuff. Those pieces are important too, but with legal status, it would allow him to work more easily and earn all of that stuff for himself.
Well, there are so many directions we can take this. I'm not sure, exactly where we can start. Well, first of all, let's do some theology. Let me stretch you not only as a deacon but as a minister. As you mentioned, we don't get involved in politics as pastors and as the church. That's not the church's business, but we do need to be prophetic.
Yes.
Without trying to designate policy. That's what we elect people to do. But why should Christians care about undocumented immigrants?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's come up even more specifically with the border situation, right, where Christians have said, well, we should reach out and care as Christians, but it's not our country's job to take care of everybody in
And
the
some
world.
Christians are taking the other side, that they're breaking the law, kick them out.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so why should we care? Why should we embrace them?
Yeah, and they're also taking the side of, which I don't agree with this side, but even if you are on this side, there's the side of the Bible isn't a textbook for government policy. The Bible says to love your neighbor and turn the other cheek, but does that mean we shouldn't have any laws, etc.? And so I don't know if I agree with that side, but I can set that side aside and say, okay, so the Bible isn't a textbook for government policy. Let's just assume that it's not. It has nothing to say to government policy, but it is a textbook for Christians.
Right.
I think we can agree on that. And it says really clearly so many times to defend the cause of the poor, the widow, and the immigrant. So whatever the rules are for our country as a Christian, it is really clear my job is to defend the cause of the immigrant. So that's a new conversation.
That's a very interesting angle, because that sounds to me like a total cop-out. Because the commandments say thou shalt not steal. So should that mean we shouldn't have police protection?
Yeah, I don't.
Right. I mean, there are certain implications to what God wants us to do and how to enforce it and how to carry it out. And the Bible talks constantly, as you know, beginning in Exodus already, that we are to treat the undocumented immigrant. In the old translations, they were called aliens and strangers.
Yeah.
But today we would translate that undocumented immigrants, and they were to be treated with the same respect as those who were citizens of Israel. Now, I'm not talking about a theonomy kind of approach, to it, but they were supposed to be treated with the same love and respect. And we also know that was not happening in the nations around them. So this was unique for Israel, because it was open season on immigrants, And then but God says not for
As
you.
it tends to be all over the world every time there's an immigration situation.
That's right.
Yes.
It is an underclass to exploit.
God foresaw that our sin might.
Isn't that something? For thousands of years, people with illegal status, so to speak, become open season for abuse and exploitation. There's only one person in the Bible that I can think of who didn't do that. Boaz, where Ruth came in, and he even had to warn his workers, don't abuse her.
Right.
Because she's undocumented immigrant, and he gave her a job, and he protected her, and so forth. So
that's a good example of him abiding by those.
That's
laws.
right. That's right. He abided by God's law, and so you see this as an ethical issue for Christians and for the church to grapple with.
Yes. Yeah, and I just really want to be clear about that too. I think that we need to wrestle with those Old Testament commands as a country, and as we make our laws. They definitely apply to us today. But if someone wants to come from the perspective that they don't apply to us today, there's still a lot of wrestling to do with the idea that you as a Christian are supposed to speak up for laws that are good for immigrants. So if you feel like, the Bible doesn't say what those laws are, but I need to speak up for laws that truly benefit the most vulnerable immigrants and refugees. Well, that part I don't think any Christian can argue with.
Well, I think you're right.
Laws. Yeah.
And we can reach far beyond the Christian community because Muslims consider the Old Testament sacred, as do the Jews, as do Mormons. I mean, there are a good part of the world's religions holds to the sacredness of the Old Testament, but it is also in the New Testament. Hebrews 13, show hospitality. That means be welcoming to strangers, be welcoming to undocumented immigrants, because you may be welcoming angels unaware.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting, that somehow we have something to learn from them. God wants to talk to us. Well, we got to stop for a break.
Okay.
And then we're gonna jump right back into this, especially the ethical dilemma that your church has faced with this. We'll be right back after this.
At Crossroad Bible Institute, we are committed to helping people in prison develop relationships with Jesus Christ. By correcting Bible study lessons and writing letters of encouragement, CBI instructors participate in this ministry in a safe and secure way. For more information or to sign up to become a CBI instructor, please visit us at cbi.fm on the web.
Welcome back to Crossroad Connection. My name is David Schuringa, and I'm in the studio here today with Chris Veningen. Chris is with the Office of Social Justice, and his specialty is immigration. And he has a lot of things on his mind and heart with that. We've been talking in the first segment about why Christians should be concerned about this, and I think we came to a pretty good conclusion that, well, because this is what the Bible says, if we love our neighbors as ourselves, we especially need to be watching out for the vulnerable. And right now, the undocumented immigrants are among the most vulnerable of our society and easy to exploit, right? I want to get into other aspects of it, but just to finish off this approach of the church, how does the church handle the ethical dilemma of helping, protecting, harboring undocumented immigrants when they're breaking the law? Shouldn't they just? How does your church handle that ethical dilemma?
Yeah, well, the CRC actually did a theological study on this in 2010. They reported that study back to Synod, our governing body with representatives from every region. And what that said is that God's law is higher than man's law. These laws are broken. They're not working well. We need to respect the rule of law, but where the rule of law is breaking up families and making it impossible to gain legal status, we also need to respect God's rule of law, which says to welcome the stranger. And because we do care about the rule of law, we need to advocate and speak up for laws that work. We want laws that will work and do the job because we respect the rule of law as well. And having the system be dysfunctional like it is, which I think people on the left and the right would agree that it's very dysfunctional.
Right.
That is an abuse of the rule of law. We've been hearing the rhetoric now that we're a nation of laws, and
the rule of law.
But that isn't necessarily true. We're a nation of justice, and we can look back over our history where a law has not worked or has been oppressive. We haven't been a tyrant to that law as a country. We've said we're advanced. We changed that law to make it work and to free people up from oppression. So I see us as a land of justice. Before we're a land of the rule of law.
I don't think it would be an exaggeration, but maybe you disagree. But, in Nazi-occupied Europe, in the Netherlands, for example, where my ancestors come from, and Veningen, yours did too, there was, in the Netherlands at that time, a division among Christians.
Yeah.
In terms of, do you hide Jews or not? Because, well, the Nazis were the law and stuff like that. So they say turn the Jews over. But others said, no, this is wrong. We're going to hide these Jews. And when they come to our door, we're going to lie about it. You think could there be a connection?
I think there's a correlation there, but it's a little bit easier for us too because that government didn't say, hey, if you have a better idea for these laws, come and tell us about it. I don't think the leadership there had that as an option for those who are hiding Jews.
That was the rule of law.
That was the rule of law.
Not justice.
Whereas here, they say, if there's a law that's not working, let's talk about that. Meet with your representatives, meet with your senators. Let's bring bills forward to change this. So we have a system that says, let's work together and talk together to change this.
We're protecting life here, and until we get that law changed.
And that's a challenge that we don't face as Christians a lot here, or maybe as much as we should, where the rule of law doesn't necessarily line up with God's law. And that's where Christianity gets a little more radical, right?
How have you as a deacon fared with helping them to get legal status? I have a friend who's a farmer, but he has undocumented immigrants that are working for him because nobody else will do the work. But he's been wanting to be faithful to the law, so he's spent thousands of dollars to try to get legal status, but keeps hitting brick walls.
So in the U.S., this is from Chamber of Commerce and the Farm Bureau. Both use these numbers frequently. 70% of ag employees in the U.S. do not have are undocumented immigrants.
70%?
Yes. So I do like these trainings in churches about what's broken in our system and some of the theology behind it. And almost without fail, if there is someone in that group who has an ag background, they'll pull me aside afterwards and say, thank you so much, first of all, for helping the rest of the congregation understand, like,
this has been our dirty secret for a long time.
Tough issue. And then there's, I'm a pastor, and there's that kind of, I got to talk to a pastor about this thing where they say, I feel really bad because on the one hand, I'm breaking the law and I'm putting people in a vulnerable situation, and I also want to keep my business going and don't know how else it would work. So they are in, as Christians, a really tough ethical situation that there are not any, I don't think there's a right and wrong, super easy answer to it, except that we need better laws that work. And so for Christians in our churches who work in agriculture, this is a constant struggle for them as well. And so you mentioned, like, trying to get legal status. There are ways to try to help to get legal status, but for most of those 70% of farm workers, there is no way. There's no way to get legal status. To come legally across the border, there's not really a good way to do it. And to get legal status once you're here, if you're here already illegally, to now get legal status, there's also no good way to do that. There's about, for maybe, there's like 5,000 low-skilled worker visas per year, which I think staffs 10% of some of the strawberry farms in California. But outside of that, there isn't. It's not impossible. It happens. But for a vast, vast, vast majority, I don't know the percent, I'd be willing to guess 90 or 95% of those low-skilled workers, there is no legal pathway.
Well, as you know, we are a ministry to people in prison and so forth, and so we have about 3,000 Spanish-speaking undocumented immigrant students who are in detention centers. Yeah, and now they're beginning to put them in our prisons as well. And just what our viewers probably are not aware of, and that is that these undocumented immigrants have no rights. They don't get to make the one telephone call. Yeah. After this break, I want to talk about a couple of things. First of all, this whole issue of migrant children. Thousands of kids now are coming across the border. Right. And what is this all about? And then also, I'd like to talk about resources and ways that people can get more involved and more educated in terms of this very important issue. Okay. We'll be right back after this.
Correcting Bible study lessons is crucial to helping inmates. To partner with CBI in this safe and secure role, please visit us at cbi.fm on the web.
Welcome back to Crossroad Connection, talking with Chris Finningen here from the Office of Social Justice, and his specialty is immigration, and so we've been tackling this great big issue. And in our last segment here, I want to get into this current issue of what do you know about and what's going on with migrant children. Why are these kids? They're coming from Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras. What's going on? Why are thousands of children rushing to this country?
Yeah. Those are the three main countries that kids are coming from who are arriving at the border. And there is no one reason why every kid is coming. It's a complex situation. There are a host of reasons, but most research organizations identify violence in home countries, especially El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, as the reason. That's the main reason.
Gang violence, like they're
Mhm.
they're being recruited, trying to be recruited for the gangs
Yes.
and stuff like that. And so they're running away from that.
hmm Yeah, and I've met young people who have been victims of that violence, whether it was after getting into a gang or one who had nothing to do with any gangs, and as a 12-year-old he was caught in crossfire and shot, and he found his way to the United States. After that, his mom sent him to be with relatives here. So the violence is a big driving factor, and there are statistics linking, especially in some of the city areas like Tegucigalpa, the capital city of Honduras, where I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's your chances of being killed or injured through
Very
violence
high as
are
kids.
significantly way higher than anywhere else in the world, especially if you're a teenage boy in those areas.
Now, these migrant children that are
Mhm.
flocking to America, this is a different issue in the sense of the adult undocumented immigrants who are coming for financial reasons because they're poor. They want to find a job for their family.
Yeah.
This this is more like an asylum issue, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
And isn't the law for accepting people seeking asylum much clearer?
Yes. Yeah, for a vast majority of the kids, it's an asylum issue, trying to seek asylum from the violent situations where there are gang members who are angry at them that they looked at them the wrong way or didn't join their gang. Another really tough example is as kids finish high school and have an idea to start a small business, which you can do in cities outside of the U.S. too. That's a really helpful thing to do. And people have ideas and they can start something, and as soon as it starts taking off, whether it's selling a food item, offering a service, the gang will levy a tax on them that is way beyond what makes it worth having
Why
your
would
business.
the gangs want to shut down their businesses?
That's a good question. I think it's a controlling the
control
neighborhood
thing.
and community kind of thing. So
You work for us,
Yes, exactly.
right?
And so if you have a business, you're under the authority of the gang. And so that and the violent and the getting pulled into gangs and just the general violence and robberies. So there's gang violence happening, and that makes violent communities. That has other systemic effects that allow other violence to happen more easily too, right? Because the police force is overwhelmed. Some of the police officers are great. Some are just trying to make it through their day. Some of them are corrupt and connected to the gangs too. So law enforcement in general isn't the best.
When it comes to migrant children seeking asylum, I don't see any ethical dilemmas there.
No, I don't either. And, some of the rhetoric spins this situation way off from the reality.
Yeah, like Obama said, kids can get in and stuff like that, and all kinds of silly stuff.
The kids who arrive at the border are asking for asylum. It's not a sneaking in and getting caught. It's kind of a, this isn't the best way to put it, but a way to put it is it's like coming up and waving a white flag, kind of like.
Please let us in.
Yes, and hear and listen to our case, give us a trial. And that's what our laws are set up to do. We have a law called the Trafficking Victims Protection Act that was signed by George Bush in 2008. It has international agreements with countries like Honduras and Guatemala. And as a part of that agreement, it says if kids arrive at our border with a reasonable fear of violence due to gang activity or human trafficking, we as a country will hear their case. And one of the things that government has done in response to this sudden increase is try to roll back that law. The Senate voted, or not the Senate, I'm sorry, the House voted to roll back that law in the end of July. It didn't happen in the Senate. I doubt that it would be signed by Obama.
So the House that's run by Republicans. They want to roll back the law that the Republican president put into place.
Yeah, and to be fair, Obama floated that as an idea originally too to make changes to that law, but advocates said, no, you can't do that. And he changed his position and said, no, we're keeping the Trafficking Protection Victims Act law in
wonderful.
place.
Yeah.
So you talked about it being in detention centers and not having any rights. This law is there to give those kids rights. There's a slew of reasons outside of violence why a kid could be there, But for those who are there for reasons of violence, we don't want them to fall through the cracks, right? We want their cases to be heard by judges who have the expertise to work with kids. We want them to have legal representation that has the expertise to represent kids. And we don't want any of these kids to fall through the cracks. IJM, International Justice Mission, who works hard in human trafficking, they put a lot of time into that Trafficking Protection Act being in place because there's the passion there that kids don't fall through the cracks. We just don't let that happen as a country. So that law is in place.
That's very interesting. What keeps ringing in my ears when Jesus said, "Let the children come to me and forbid them not." So we can do that as a nation.
For sure.
We got a couple of minutes to talk about how can people get involved. How can the church get involved? I can tell them right now, become a Crossroad instructor.
Yes.
We have a great need for Spanish speaking and writing instructors for adults. We have about 3,000 students in detention centers, but we also have a Spanish children's program, and we're working to get to the children of prisoners, but also to these migrant kids, so they can go to Crossroads website and become an instructor. What does the Office of Social Justice offer them for involvement?
Yeah, so there's kind of to get involved. There's three main ways plus another smaller additional one.
3 ways. Number one.
Number one is getting in touch with organizations like Bethany Christian Services, Lutheran Social Services, Catholic Charities, who are already and have for a long time been working with refugees. And they're looking for families to really take that big step to have an unaccompanied child in your home while they look for their relatives and replace them. Those
sort of like foster kids.
Yeah, it's foster care for unaccompanied minors.
So go to Bethany Christian Services and say, hey, we're willing to take some of these kids in for a while until you find a place for them. Wow, that's
the families who are doing that have a powerful, powerful story to tell. And
Number two.
They're doing it. Number two is there's a need for spiritual care at the border and a need for legal representation at the border, and their webpage, so just going to the crcjustice.org webpage unpacks some of those opportunities as well to be able to provide spiritual care and legal care for kids at the border.
Okay, very good. And number 3 is education, perhaps?
Yes, number 3 is educating yourself, educating your congregation, and educating your representatives and senators as well.
Right.
We can really be a service to our Congress people by educating them on what's happening and also educating them on our perspective as Christians. Doing that work to defend the cause of the poor, the immigrant, and the orphan is huge. And so education/advocacy, really telling the story and getting it out there.
And before we close, there's a book called The Church Between the Borders, and this is a guide that can be used in churches, correct? So if you want to educate them, so a minister could do a series of sermons, you can have an adult Sunday school class, Bible study, things like that to really get involved. So what's the Office of Social Justice website?
It's crcjustice.org.
Okay, and they can just go to the crcna.org and find the Office of Social Justice.
And for this, we have 60-some trained facilitators who are great and would be willing to come and join with the pastor or small group leader to lead this. So it's kind of like, I've worked as a pastor. If you can have somebody come and do something for you, and all you got to do is bring the people and brew some coffee, that's pretty nice.
That sounds fantastic. So we should tell them, get over to that OSJ
crcjustice.org.
And they should also invite you to come and speak in their church.
I would be happy to do it.
You can do an adult Sunday school. You still preach and all of that?
I do.
So that would be a way for them too, for you to come there.
Okay.
Well, thanks so much, Chris, for being with us. It's been great to have someone with your knowledge and expertise here.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it's been a very informative program. And I hope you learned a lot today as we talked about this very, very important issue, an issue that's close to Jesus' heart, and that is how we deal with undocumented immigrants. And I hope to see you again right here next week.